And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy National Authors Day. Welcome to National Authors Day in Trinidad and Tobago, declared such by the Tobago Writers Guild. And we welcome all the persons who are on our panel, as well as our viewers, to this free webinar for all writers. And the name of this webinar is From Pen to Publication, where we talk about what the process is to become a published writer, to become a published author. And we will be decoding the process for you. And with us today, we have 4 experts in the field of publishing in their own right. And we have with us, first person is Mrs. Deborah Moore-Miggins. She's an attorney at law, a former Tobago House of Assembly, THA minority leader and assemblywoman, a former parliamentary senator, and a soon-to-be second-time published author. Welcome, Ms. Miggins. The next person we have with us is Shaun Ajamu Hutchinson, and he's British born. He's a TrinBagonian journalist, columnist, and editor, culture and arts editor at the New Black magazine. He's a contributing editor at the Caribbean Empowerment blog, and his feature writing, news reports, and articles have also been published in Newsday Tobago. Welcome, Mr. Ajamu Hutchinson.
Welcome, everyone.
We have with us thirdly, Yishibah Baht Gavriel, and she is a former psychiatric nurse, a psychology professional in the field of Black mental health at the University College London Hospital. She's an activist, a Trinidadian-born African Hebrew Israelite, bilingual British resident, and soon-to-be first-time published author. Welcome, Yishibah.
Thank you very much.
And lastly, but by no means least, is Mr. Clement Williams, Guyanese-born, celebrated professional Tobagonian photographer, photojournalist, and third-time published author. And I am your moderator, Ms. Jewel Green-George. I am the Tobago Writers Guild marketing director. And I am a newbie to publishing. I haven't published anything yet. I have a manuscript and I keep writing. And I am going to be your guinea pig today. So for all the unpublished writers out there who want to know what it is to become published, how do we go about this? You know, it's so secretive and nobody actually wants to share this juicy information. We are going to be exposing and pulling back the curtain on publishing for you, and discussing some of the things that we in the Writers Guild are encouraging people to do, the process that we're encouraging them to go through. And I want to start with one question first to all the panelists. What exactly propelled you all to become writers? What was it? And in no particular order, but what was it that initially propelled you all into taking pen to paper, as they say?
Well, I'll take this first. Welcome to the other panelists. Welcome to Yishibah, Clement, Deborah, and to you, Joel. As a writer, as a journalist and an editor, my writing journey, you might say, from pen to publication began at a young age. And I think that this is something that viewers tonight should think about. At a young age, we become literate. We love reading, hopefully. We love books of all types, children's books, comics, magazines. So pursuing that interest led me to a love of, reading and writing. I always liked to write stories, fictional stories. For the rest of my childhood into adolescence and adulthood, I continued to be interested in literature of all types, fiction and non-fiction, which led me to write about the things that I was interested in. And the things that I was interested in was history, culture, politics, sport. So I decided that I could and should become a journalist. So my writing is not so much fiction, which our other colleagues here today might be focusing on. My writing is journalistic writing. So I pursued that endeavor, tried to hone my skills as a writer, as a journalist, tried to develop the skills and selection criteria, you might say, curiosity, confidence, being inquisitive, having an eye for detail, looking at what's going on around you and being able to keep a journal, you might say, to write about it, to report about it, to explain things, to look behind the scenes and open up a clearer picture for people. So this is how I became involved in journalism. And I think that for all of us here, for all of our viewers tonight, journalism is a noble profession. It's not as daunting as it might sound. Seeing your name in print on a regular basis is beneficial. It's nice. It gives one pride. But as important is being able to write about one's locality. One's writing doesn't have to be on the broadest scale. It could be on a local scale. You could be writing about your town or your village or the group that you're in. If you're in a band, a musical band or a speech band or a sports team, these are all areas that can be written about. And I always say that there's always a story. People always want to hear stories, and there's many mediums to take your stories from pen to publication as a journalist. We have blogs, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, as well as more traditional routes, broadcast media, as well as print media. So that's some background and some details of how I developed a love for writing and for journalism. And I've been able to, since I've been here in Tobago for the last 6 years, definitely the Tobago Writers Guild has provided a space for me to develop that skill further, to write further, to meet new people, new subjects to be able to write about, new characters to interview, new links, new sources of information. So pen to publication, it can be done. As writers, we are trying our best to do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Shaun. Is there anybody else who wants to just give us an insight, a brief insight into what propelled you to become a writer?
Well, I believe these things are in your psyche from a very early age. I look at my grandson, I have two. One likes to talk and use words. The other is very quiet and silent. He doesn't talk much, doesn't do the communication thing. And I feel that from the time you're small, there are things going around in you that carries you on that trajectory. Like for me, it was the recitation in the church. Then I was hooked when somebody took me to a speech band launching. And when I heard calypso and I see how they use the words and made these double entendre and how they play around, these things fascinated me. And I found myself having them naturally come to me, and I just developed a curiosity about words, about how to use them to maximum effect and to massage and manipulate and put them in a speech and to get the punchline. And if you can get it with this word, what other word you could use? And oh boy, just nice, exciting things going on in my brain. And little by little, started writing poems as well. But for me, it was more calypso and speech band. I wrote a lot of those growing up in my early years. And then I went in to do law, and I see it there all majestic in front of me, where you could win or lose a case because you didn't have an appreciation of the right word to use or the right body language to communicate. That's another very powerful thing, how you use the tone of your voice, your eyes, the lean of your head, and even that affects you when you're doing your cross-examination. So it's not only words, it's that the nuances of a person, how they present themselves. So these are fascinating for me, and I just got into writing more and more, and you know, it's still there bubbling up, bubbling, and you can't resist it. So that was my propeller to get into writing.
Awesome. We want to do Yishibah, and then we'll go to Mr. Williams, just to give us an insight into what caused you to become a writer, what really propelled you into that field.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you very much for the space, the platform, my fellow panelists, and of course, the moderator and listeners. Well, my introduction has been made easy because I could grab a thread from Shaun, and I can grab a thread from Mrs. Miggins?
Yes.
I can grab a thread from both of you because growing up in Trinidad, for example, I had a natural inclination, like Mrs. Moore-Miggins said.
That's a Deborah.
Sorry?
It's Deborah.
Oh, Deborah, sorry, yeah, just call you Deborah.
Yes, it's easier.
Okay, all right. Yes, as Deborah said, like her, I've got two grandsons. One has just turned 3, and the other one is 4. One is very much into figures and maths, and the other one, he's already into writing. So like you said, it's in the psyche. It's almost like a kind of, inherent talent inborn in the child. But for me, growing up in Trinidad, first of all, also out of the church, we spent a lot of time with the biblical text and the grand narratives. I read a lot of stories actually from Hans Christian Andersen, Uncle Arthur's bedtime stories. So I had a love of words and a love of stories and narrative. As I grew up older, growing up in, for example, the primary school I went to, the best teachers I remember were my English language teachers. They were always the best teachers, and I always liked not their pet, but they always liked me because I took a pride in the English language and writing. So I also took part in public speaking, for example. And as I grew, more and more my creative imagination became more and more prolific. But I had a more leaning for the more serious journalistic type writing. I remember the first article I wanted to write was about the significance of the church and the traditional African practices, like the carnival, because there was a tension. Whenever there was carnival, some church groups would go away. So I saw the tension between the traditional church and the carnival, and I wanted to write something about that. But believe it or not, before I left Trinidad, I actually applied to the Trinidad Guardian to become a journalist. And I was so, and you could see the choice of the journalistic paper I chose actually is an indication of my interest. And I didn't hear anything from them for quite a while. And after I came to England in 1979, my mother wrote to me and sent me a letter that I was accepted by the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian to be a trainee journalist. But there you go. And I did not, it was mixed because I got into nursing and I said, well, I'll be writing for the Nursing Times anyway, which I did. I did a couple of articles for the Nursing Times, so it was always in me. Subsequently, I began to hone my writing skills. I always had a pen and a pad, always take it with me wherever I am. I always had an idea. So writing is part of my psyche and my DNA. And I must say that prior to, in 1990, I became the member of an international, very, very highly esteemed Writers Guild. But having come to the Tobago Writers Guild, I think it's given me more of an enriched, a kind of implosion. No, I must go back. Prior to that, I was the member of the publishing group that's doing my children's book. And she had a women's writers group as a book journey mentor. And that's just before I came into the very prolific and dynamic Tobago Writers Guild. And here I am.
Thank you so much, Yishibah. You make the Writers Guild look good all the time. Mr. Williams, could you just give us a brief insight into what
caused me? Okay, when I was in school, I loved history and doing research in history. And another thing that in our family, my father was in the media, and every year at Christmas, the photographer will come and take family photographs. And I was fascinated with this guy with this camera coming every Christmas to get photographs of us. And so I developed an interest in photography. It was just an interest. And you know, my grandfather bought me a little Brownie camera, and I started using it. I had it up to a couple of years ago. And when I came to Tobago, I looked around and I saw that there are a lot of things happening in Tobago, but few photographers are taking photographs of these old buildings and documenting the history. And when I studied photography, it is one thing they told us, that photography should be a history lesson, and you should document every single thing you see in order to keep it for memories in the future. So I followed that team from the class, and I started taking photographs of every single thing I see in Tobago. Right? And so as I documented from black and white to color, I started working as a photojournalist with the Tobago News, then went to Express. Then I did a one-off stint with the Associated Press. And then I compiled my photographs, and speaking to the curator of the museum, he said, get a book done about it. So I went into the public library and I did research on buildings in Tobago. And so I found out some of the buildings in Tobago were built by Tobagonians of old. Even the tall steps, right, long steps, was built by a Tobagonian, right? And I decided, okay, let me go ahead. And I went and did research of more of the buildings in Scarborough and buildings out of Scarborough. And so I compiled it's a lot of work. It took nearly the photographs took a long time to complete, but take over a year to do research to get the true facts of the history of Tobago to go with the buildings. And so in last year, the book was released last year, February. It was launched February, and before this year, and this year completely sold out. So I'm preparing now for the second edition of the book.
Okay, well, congratulations, Mr. Williams. So let me just give the public some insights in case you've missed it. Mr. Clement, he writes with his camera, right? He's a photojournalist. We have Shaun, who writes what he is seeing and experiencing in the environment as it's happening, right? So he's a columnist journalist. He is bringing perspective to our current events. And we have Yishibah and Ms. Miggins, who bring culture, a cultural view to their writing to expose us to that TrinBagonian, Tobagonian in us all, right? We may come from a specific place, but we are all united by this human experience of growing up, of experiencing the world together. And that's what writing does. It brings us together in that one space, wherever you may be, whether it is in Israel, it's in England, it's in Tobago, it brings us all together. So we're just gonna hop right in and hop right into our questions. I want people to feel relaxed. If you're at home looking at us, please get something to drink, get a notebook. You may wanna take some notes. This is going to be a very, very rich edutainment experience for you. So the first question we're gonna look at, how do I get an idea to a book into my hand as a published book? And I don't want you all to just, take your time and pull it out, but really and truly, tell me what your process was when you had that idea. And we'll start with the last and come back around. So we'll start with Yishibah and we'll go to Ms. Miggins. We'll start with Clement and go to Yishibah and go back around the other way. When you had that idea, what really happened when you started to look for avenues to publish your book? And let's remember, we have a lot of questions. So we don't want to gloss over anything, but we want everybody to hear what we all have to offer as much as possible.
May I say, if before you plan to do a book and you have an idea of the book, you should start contemplating the ideas in your head. And I find it very useful that if you have a tape recorder, to record your ideas so that you will not forget it. And the best time that you can able to record the ideas and have peace of mind and have your mind ticking is between 3 and 5 in the morning. As I said, that's the time when all man does the dead of the night. They call it the graveyard shift. When you awake and you alone and God is talking, and you're surprised to know that there were a lot of ideas that come to your head to start the construction of your book. Right? Tape it and keep it there because it is easy to forget. So when you tape it, you have it there and you then write it down and you continue doing that for some time. You might spend a year compiling ideas for a book before you actually start writing. So don't rush to do no.
Your tip, Mr. Williams, is to get a tape recorder and just have it close by so you can record the ideas quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a valuable tip. I'm going to put that in my hat for later on. So the rest of the panel, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, no,
how did you get from your idea to a manuscript to a book? Just a brief overview.
Okay.
Yishibah.
Yeah, can I jump in? Well, when I had the idea to write the children's book, actually the idea came from a stimulus. Looking at my grandbaby, he was about 2.5, and because I love mangoes, and his parents gave him a mango, and the way he was massacring this mango down to the seed, I thought, no, that was me. That was me when I was growing up. So I started to observe him, and then I spoke to my daughter about, I need to write a book for him about mangoes through the prism of my own experience of growing up with mangoes. So I started observing him, and also I started writing. I have notepads everywhere. Every time I'm babysitting, I've had my notepad and I will observe, how he's behaving. And that's when I started in the home environment where I'm observing him. That kind of infused me because I was writing a children's book and I had to think about their developmental expressions and the language. So that was my kind of, it was my, I would say my holding space that allowed me to be able to be inspired and infused with the notion of a children's book.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is excellent. So Mr. Williams is saying get a tape recorder. Yishibah is using her personal life experience happening in front of her to incubate those ideas and to get them to a stage where she can put them down on paper. So she takes notes. Yishibah, how do you keep these notebooks straight? Because I am saying if you have notebooks all over the place, you're going to write in this one. And you're gonna, do you have them numbered or something?
First of all, I've got 5 hardcover notebooks, and each one is for different types of writing because I also write for another writers guild. So I've got all the scripts with my ideas in notepads, and I refer to them now as I'm coming up to the publication of my book. But these are the hardcover books that I use, so they're good enduring reference.
Very good. Thank you so much. And everybody else, Shaun and Deborah.
Well, as a journalist, it's slightly different depending on the publication you're writing for and the publication dates, you might say. So as a journalist, my main goal is accuracy and speed. So many of the articles, reports, reviews, commentaries I'm writing are about issues that are happening now or have happened recently. So for those articles to be enlightening, informative, and effective, I have to write with speed. So we have to develop, as journalists, one of the attributes that we have to develop is to be able to use our pen to go from pen to publication very quickly, which takes speed of thought, speed of writing or typing, but also trying to absorb and capture the information that we see or the snippets of conversation that we have with people. So I may be talking to Deborah or to Yishibah or to you, Jewel, or Clement about an issue. I need to really absorb what they're telling me, the conversation, and if I need to translate that in a quote or to refer to what they said, I need to be able to do it quickly and accurately. So that's one of the attributes I think are important. For me personally, I keep a journal. We say journalism comes from the word journal, keeping a journal for personal reflections, personal thoughts, but also the observations that I experience, the things that I see in where I live, where I reside, in the town where I reside in Scarborough, the issues that are happening, the events that are unfolding. Some things I may think that they are mundane or everyday, but they're usually linked to something bigger going on in the environment, in the politics, in the culture of the country. So for me, keeping a journal is important. Being able to write quickly, to turn around the articles very quickly is very important. That might be slightly different to the pen to publication of a book manuscript, but it's good training for an author to be able to write.
I see that, Shaun. So I'm getting a better picture of what a journalist has to deal with and some of the processes. So what you're telling me, and it's true. I mean, things happen so quickly in the world around us. We cannot wait to incubate it for days and weeks and a year, because sometimes these topics and issues vanish out of the space. I mean, you can certainly go back historically and write about it. But if you're writing a column or a journal in a periodical, you want to be present for the activity as it's happening to help other people experience it in a very varied way. And I think that's important for us. So all the future journalists, what we're hearing is journalism needs speed. We have to be able to process quickly. We have to be able to internalize quickly and to reproduce what we're seeing from our mind onto the paper in a very quick way. We have a lot of deadlines as journalists, right? Is that what Shaun is saying?
Correct, yes.
Very good.
Shaun, I could support Shaun in that, because as a photojournalist, you have to get that image out to go with the story. And it is speed.
Yeah. So Clement and Shaun they're in tandem here. One is producing the visual effects and one is producing the word written story. So they both are dealing with some very tight deadlines and schedules to get stories out, to get periodicals and journals out in a timely manner, because the news cycle is very short. We have a daily paper, and I'm supposing, when Shaun, you said your articles appeared in Newsday. Those are daily papers as well. So you don't have all day to sit and plan your life out, how you're going to deliver this book, etc. But, it's a different scenario. So I like that.
And Joel,
yes,
the daily papers are no more daily papers, it's now orally papers. Because as soon as a story out on photographs, it's out in 2 hours after a story on Facebook already.
Yes.
So it's no more a daily paper. It's printed in a day. But it is out in the news in hours.
Yeah. Ms. Miggins, you want to just weigh in and tell us how you get your stories out? What's your process? Your mic is muted.
I have a different story to tell. First of all, I don't need any time of day that's more prolific for me than another time. I get ideas, especially I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm ironing, when I'm washing wares, when I meet people on the street, and I have had to try to commit them to memory till I get to where I'm going to sit and either write. I do a lot of my things on the computer. I come and I type it and save it under something. But what I do to carry it, to remember it, well, I'm sure you all know about the mnemonic process. I kind of tie my information to something or somebody that when I go now and I try a little later to get it back, immediately that person or whatever I tied it to springs to mind and my memory kicks in. So I have had to rely a great deal on my memory, because like the first book I wrote, Caribbean Proverbs that raised us, I got proverbs from so many people. And sometimes it's on the go. Sometimes you just meet them and they said something in passing and that's a proverb for you. How do you remember it? I may be driving. Well, I wasn't stopping because I'm relying on the memory. So I have to build into my memory ways of remembering things. So that is what I did. And little by little, I put all my different proverbs, came home, typed them, go to the office, and I sat down, type, and eventually they built to a very huge body of poems, of proverbs. And then I just put them, arrange them into book format or how I want to present it. And it's virtually done. But I've had to go through that process of finding a way for my brain to remind me of what the point is, what the idea is. So I keep challenging my brain. That's how I know I'm not getting old. Because when it starts to fail me in that regard, it's failing me in other things, though, eh? But when it starts to fail me in that regard, well, I know I'm getting over the hill. But that internal mnemonic process, I think, is one that really has carried me through for a lot of years. Generally, too, when I argue a case, I may not be able to get everything from my paper. I may hear the witness say something, and I have to, well, certainly you would write it down, but there are things that just come to you on the spur, and you have to find a way to keep it committed in your memory in order to make the best of the point, or demolish somebody with it, or prop them up, or something like that. So this cabeza here has had to rescue me quite a lot.
Miss Miggins, you're really buoying me along beautifully, because I was thinking of, as you were talking about different places in which you become inspired. I usually get very, very much inspirational ideas for writing when I'm in the kitchen and cooking. And believe it or not, one of the places where I think water is really a live element, when I'm in the shower,
yes.
I mean, the ideas that keep flowing, it's almost as though the water, well, they say water is a live element. I get a lot of inspiration. And also before going to bed, before I go into that state of consciousness, a lot of, ideas also come to me. But I just wanted to add quickly that even though for this purpose, I've focused on my children's book, which is currently something in train, but my writing, my inclination, my interest is really, it's geopolitical, geospiritual. In fact, I've written about Brexit. I've written about, I've just been asked by a self-help news, an international platform, to write about Windrush. And that's my inclination really, is the serious, hard, critical analysis, social, political kind of issues with my own take. So even though I'm saying I'm a children's writer, and that's a new and a challenging area for me, but my interest is more societal, geopolitical, psychological analysis, etc. And now with the Brexit dynamic, I'm also observing some of the global phenomenon in terms of the pandemic. Those are my areas that actually trigger me more. But the children's writing is a nice little escape for me.
That is amazing. I think one of the things, and allow me, the non-expert, to just put in my 2 cents, right? I think one of the things that every writer has to deal with is that topic of inspiration, and how to deal with collecting those thoughts, those inspirational thoughts as they come. Sometimes the tap is on full blast, and you have to find a way to contain it, not to stop it, but to contain it so that you can use it. And sometimes the tap is on drip, and sometimes the tap is completely off. And I think we all are, at times, apparently not Miss Miggins, because she said she's brushing her teeth, things are coming to her, she's meeting people in the street. It is just full on tap all the time with Miss Miggins. It's pouring, it's show, everything just keeps coming to her. We mere mortals have to get out inspirational Cake from time to time, you know. We might be eating some fruit, the morning sunset, morning sunrise, or the evening sunset. You know, different things might give you a jolt of inspiration. But what I'm getting from all of you is that there are a lot of ways, not one way, there are many ways to make sure, one, the inspiration is turned on, that you're tuned in, and there are many ways to make sure you capture that inspiration as it comes. So the thoughts, the flashes of phrases, you can write, you can record, you can recall, right? Your memory has to come into play there, and you can also keep journals, right? So I want all of you writers to remember these methods, because the more methods you have at hand, then you may know what works better for you. So we want to...
Sorry, Jewel.
Yes, go ahead, Yishibah.
Yeah, can I just jump in quickly? In terms of the protocols between the idea and getting the manuscript and the stage where I am at the moment, I was very lucky to have, I used to do a book review show with a co-presenter who is now my publisher. And from that, interviewing authors and also writing their reviews and have interviewing them on air. That was a very, very good trigger for me, which actually led me to be in contact with Danny Bleckner, who actually she runs what's called, she's a book journey mentor. And I joined a women's writers group for almost a year in the process of my having written the manuscript, and got a lot of coaching for her, right through to the stage now where she has accepted my manuscript. I've already actually paid for the production of the book, and she is just waiting now for the illustrator to get the illustrations together to her. So she basically mentored me through the technical process as part of this Right Women's group to where I am today.
Very good. So you're also, I'm hearing Yishibah saying, get a mentor.
Yeah.
Get support.
Yeah.
Like-minded people to get you all together. You know, we're all in a same boat together. We all want to get, and that's what the Writers Guild is doing for each writer as well. We all are in the same boat. We may be at different parts of the journey to go from pen to publication, but we're all in the same boat, trying to hone in on that skill, that talent we have, or that hobby for some people of writing and producing our ideas in written form. So with that, I want to ask the panel this really important question. And this question is one that a lot of writers are asking. I want you all to discuss with us, what are the processes that a person will have to go through if they're self-publishing? So let me break it down. I am a writer, I have my manuscript, all my thoughts are here, or I have my computer, everything is on there. It's not perhaps formatted, it's just, I just wrote down all my ideas, you know, it's in sequence. How do I get that? What do I have to do? What do I go and find a publisher? Do I write a letter to see if a publisher will give me an advance and take my manuscript? Should I go and get self-published, do it part by part? If you have a small budget or no budget at all, can you still be published? You know, tell us what your experiences have been, how you all got your manuscript to the point where you had a hard copy book in your hands. Mr. Williams, I'm going to call on you first, of course.
Okay, as I said, I had a good set of photographs, right? And what I did is that I compiled them into different locations. I was doing one of Tobago, vintage image of Tobago. So I had photographs of Scarborough, Upper Scarborough by itself, photographs of Lower Scarborough by itself, photograph of Outer Scarborough, and photographs of everyday life in Tobago, utensils used in the homes, right? And way of life and games people play. So I divided the pictures in these different, and I edited my photographs and had them there. Right. Now, the idea of dividing the books into Upper Scarborough, Lower Scarborough, Outer Scarborough, And I divided the book, starting with the history of Scarborough. So what I did, I went on the computer and I typed in the history of Scarborough, and I went and I did the research of the boundaries of Scarborough, in which people today still do not know the boundaries of Scarborough. Right? So I went and I did a research with a very old guy who lived in Scarborough in the 1950s. And he had a map of Scarborough back then. And he showed me the map. And I took a photograph of the map to start. That's the cover of the book. And I look at the history of Scarborough and the history of Tobago. And I went into the archives and document the history. I took it home and I put it together in Word. From Word, I went into Publisher and then copy and paste into Publisher to the size of the page that I need to have it at.
Okay, wait, I have to stop you. Important question. Why did you decide to go from Word to Publisher? What was wrong with Publisher? Or who told you you should go to Publisher? What happened?
In publishing, you must have the file to be published in a PDF file to be submitted to printing. And to set, because words have, if you take Word and put it to PDF, sometimes the words split all over the place and you got to go back and adjust them. So what I did, I put it into Publisher, which is a set pattern, right? And you set it just like you're doing PowerPoint. Or you could do PowerPoint too. You put it in, you get your photographs and illustrations and fit them in place, and you space them out. When you finish all the pages that you need to do, you convert that file, the Publisher file, into a PDF readable file. That readable file is sent to be edited. Right? And when it's edited, and
let me stop you again. So let me just get it straight because I'm taking notes here.
Yeah.
You went from Word to
Yes.
Publisher.
Oh, yeah.
And you formatted in Publisher. But I still want to know who sent you in Publisher. Couldn't you format it from Word?
So if you format from Word and it goes to PDF, the files sometimes get displaced. Where the pictures may go somewhere else and the words may be move around.
So we should have just go to Publisher, right? Don't bother with Word.
No, I started in Word because I found that in Word it's easier to get your corrections very fast.
Okay.
Right. So I went into Publisher, right, and I set up my fonts in Publisher, right, and it says Grammon is the best font to print in, easily read.
What font is it?
Grammon.
Okay.
Right, and I had it there, and then I convert from Publisher to a readable PDF. Now that is being sent for the editors to proofread. When I do the proofreading, I go back into the Publisher and do the correction in Publisher, and then convert it into a PDF file, printable for book form. That file is far much larger than the ordinary PDF file that you use to read as a document. And from that, you send it to the printers. I send it straight to the printers and ask them to number the pages, because they have to go back into the system to number the pages so as to print the book. In printing, they will do a proof for you to look at to see if there's any more mistakes or if the color correction is correct. You'll spend a couple of days to go it over, and you're given approval, and then they will start printing the book for you. But it's not a short process. It's a long process.
Listen,
it's
you
patience.
Make it easy.
It's patience needed.
Yeah, let me just summarize what I have here, right? So you're saying you went into Word and typed up your document because Word was helping you to catch errors.
Yeah.
And then you cut and paste it into Publisher. And you're saying the reason why you didn't go straight to Publisher is because Publisher was not helping you catch errors easily.
No, not catch errors.
What?
To me, it make it easier for me to put it in the Publisher and set the pages correct. Because
Okay.
when you're typing fast and getting your ideas down. Shaun know, but when you're doing newspaper work, you're getting your things down, and then they gotta format it back for them to go to print.
Right, exactly.
Right. So you do it in Word and get everything in Word, and then you convert it for them to print it.
Yes.
Right.
Right. So it's the same thing as doing news, you know.
Mhm.
Being in the news, you do your pictures in Word, and then they convert it to PDF for them to go and print it.
So the summary is, I'm going with my notes, Mr. Clement.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing this myself. So you went from Word to Publisher.
Yeah.
Publisher formatted the work for you.
Yeah.
And then you saved it as a PDF for printing, which is a different
So PDF for reading,
for reading, not
Yeah.
printing.
not printing, because the printing file is far much larger than the reading file.
Oh, okay. So the size of the file now, if you
Increases.
don't use PDF for reading, you're going to get a much larger file. You're probably going to have to try to compress it after and all
No, no.
sorts of that.
Yeah, so you do it in the first file, and when you go to printing now, export to print, you have at the top of the PDF, or the publisher, export to PDF for print, book
Okay.
printing, and then it make it a larger file,
Mhm.
because the small files you're sending for could go on an email, but when the
Right.
larger file comes now, you have to use WeTransfer or Google Drive to transport that book now to be printed,
So-
or you put it on a flash drive and you take it to the printers.
Right. So after you've taken your document from Word to Publisher, you've formatted it, you've saved it as a PDF for reading,
Yeah.
and now you're sending it to an editor to do some work on it.
Yeah, for them to
Alright.
see any corrections and
Right.
grammatical errors, and if you miss a full stop, spacing. These are
Right.
things you slip when you're doing it to get it, and the editors now will go through it and look for these little simple mistakes or omission of words. When they write in A-N-D and we'll put A-N, and they're going along the line. So
So does
these
this-
things happen along the line.
Does your editor fix your, let us say your sentence wordy, let us say your sentence isn't smooth.
Yeah, the
Does
editor,
the
yes,
editor fix that?
yeah, fix that, yeah. But
Okay.
what they do, in the PDF file you send to them, they
Mhm.
draw, they circle it
Mhm.
and put in the comments at the side or
Oh.
addition to the side. So when they get it back now, you go, you have it back again, and they're going through that, and you see the corrections at the side, and then you do it.
Right. So you see whether you agree with the correction. you
yeah.
make it. So after you get it to the editor, right? I'm hearing that you're sending it to a printry to get the page numbers and stuff done.
No, after you finish and you get it about to start printing,
Mhm.
you apply at NALIS to get the ISBN number.
Ah, okay.
And that number, they ask you the title of the book, the number of pages in the book, right?
Mhm.
And you'll send that information on the form, and then you have to pay to get the ISBN number. And you have to
Right.
get date of publication.
Mhm. Writers, listen, I know y'all are in the ethos, y'all are there in YouTube panicking, right? Because y'all think we're gonna run through this like a full bus. But no, I'm gonna stop Mr. Clement just now and find out some very important points. Mr. Clement, let me ask you something. Why you went NALIS? Why you didn't just apply online? I think I heard some people say they could get the ISBN number themselves online. Why should we go to NALIS? And does every library provide the service? Can a person in Oioho go to their local library and try to get an ISBN number as well? And
NALIS,
while they're at it, please explain what an ISBN number is and why do we need it?
the ISBN number is a type of copyright of your book. The number it copyrights your book. There's a barcode on the book so that in any library in the world, it can be found. And persons using your book, if your book is being used as a reference for someone doing a research, they have to quote your name, the publication, the name, and the date of the publication. So you will, in every research, their name will come up in the research paper for anybody doing a research.
Mhm. So let me get this right. An ISBN number is kind of like a catalog number. It has all your vital information about, so the author, the year of publication, the catalog number, which is what the library uses to inventory a book, right? And perhaps do bookstores and suppliers use that number in their system when they're selling your book? I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, you're correct. Another thing with the ISBN number is that it helps you along because nobody can take your work and use it without you being paid for it.
Right.
You see, a lot of people print a book and somebody use a paragraph from your book in one of the research paper, and they don't mention you at all, and it appears that if it's there doing the quotation.
Right.
So the thing is that to protect yourself, because when your book is ISBN, the professors in universities can track it to see if somebody plagiarized the book.
So
and that could send a person out of university for plagiarization, because they're supposed to give reckon the person who supplied the information.
Like in a bibliography when you're doing your
research.
research.
Yes.
So let me ask, because this is what I've heard. Your ISBN number gives you copyright protection. And I think that's what I'm hearing you saying. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but also it helps you. It's like a unique identifier. So it helps you, as Mr. Clement said, to identify this one number is given to this one book only. Yes. So wherever in the world it is, you can pick it up because that number refers to this book.
And in Trinidad and Tobago, because it's CARICOM, NALIS looks after it for Trinidad and Tobago. But when you apply for ISBN number, you apply to NALIS and you pay the CARICOM secretariat to get the number, to get the number. So you go to the bank and you do a money transfer, and when CARICOM receives the money, they inform NALIS that the money has been received and the number should be issued. And then they will send you an email stating, this is your number for your book. So when they go to print the book, it will be on the beginning of the book, ISBN number, and they give you the number, and then you tell the story after with the book. But who you are, who publishing the book, right? To pay to publish a book, it costs money.
Yes.
I decide to do it myself.
Let me ask, because I remember Miss Miggins was bringing up a point once, and she said her story was different. She did not go to the library for an ISBN number. Miss Miggins, could you expatiate on that, how you got your ISBN number?
Well, the minute you paid the publisher, because I didn't use a local publisher, I use a publisher, Outskirts Press in the US. The minute you pay them, they secured your ISBN number for you. So I did not have to do what Clement is speaking about. My ISBN number was automatic, well, I could say automatically, but it was given to me without my having to go looking for it.
Okay. Yishibah, I know you have a book coming out soon. Is this one of your experiences, or have you gotten to that point yet where you have to get an ISBN number? Could you tell us what your experience has been?
Yes, thanks a lot. I have not yet had that direct experience, because once my publisher gets my revised manuscript together with the illustrations, she takes care of that whole process. It's similar to the experience of Miss Miggins. I wouldn't have to go through all that with the ISBN number. That will be part and parcel of the process of the publishing company to facilitate that process.
So let me ask Shaun, because Shaun, as a journalist, certainly you would have some experience about, I don't know what the experience is in the journalist's world for ISBN, for periodicals, for magazines. Could you tell us something about that?
Well, I mean, the details that were just shared by Clement were important and instructive. There were technical details of carrying your idea from a manuscript to publication. So I think what Clement explained. Excuse me. What Clement explained was some of the technical details, which are the skeleton of publication. So many people will have their manuscript. They'll give their manuscript to a publisher, and the publisher will carry out all those tasks. So it's not something that the writer is going to concern themselves with or stress over or worry about, similar to perhaps Ms. Miggins, Deborah's experience, or Yishibah's experience. In journalism, it's slightly different. For periodicals, magazines, probably newspapers, copyright protection. I don't know that newspapers have or use ISBN numbers, but I know that once the writer writes, the editor finalizes the work, and the newspaper, magazine, periodical, or website is published, and the work belongs to the person who's published it. So to the writer, to the author, or to the journalist. So I'm not. I don't want to state categorically that ISBN numbers are used in journalism. For magazines, yes, I know if you pick up a magazine, some magazine, glossy magazine, for instance, you might see that on the top or the side of it with the date. But it's a slightly different process in journalism. I think just to share some experience from the Tobago Writers Guild, because we've been researching the establishment of a publishing house for the past few months, and we've established a publishing house, and these are some of the technical details that we want to assist writers and authors with. So the writers and authors concentrate on their work, on writing their work, and then seeing their work in print. Those technical details, editing, proofreading, printing, formatting, illustrating the work if necessary, ISBN numbers, all those factors are important factors to take the journalist or the writer from pen to publication. But they are the technical details of the publishing industry. And if one of our writers or authors employs, for example, the Writers Guild Publishing House, those are tasks that we will carry out. If you go to an outside publisher in the way that Deborah has described, or the way that Yishibah has described, that's one of the responsibilities of your publishing company, to sort out, to resolve, to identify, and to implement all of those administrative and bureaucratic matters related to publication.
May I say something concerning journalism?
Yes.
If you're employed with a media house,
yes,
the work belongs to the media house because you're paid a salary.
Right.
If you're a freelancer, they pay you for what you give them, and the work remains yours. So you can take all your work and compile it into a journal, into a book of your stories, and print it for yourself. But as long as you're working and they pay you a salary at any month, all the work belongs to the media house.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing to know, because that means that your intellectual property, once you're getting a salary, belongs to the person who has paid you, because in essence, what you're saying is that they're paying you to own and retain your intellectual property, yes?
It is theirs. That's why most photographers working with media houses will take photographs and submit a certain amount to the media houses and keep others for themselves.
Right.
So that they can have a little byline for something else. Because I'll tell you this, I work for media houses as a freelancer, right? And I did a photograph for one media house, and then a company asked me for the photograph, and I said, consult the media house.
Right.
Right? People come to THA for pictures. I cannot charge them for the photograph because the photographs belongs to the THA.
Right.
But if I'm doing it as a freelancer, it's my photograph.
Yeah.
You're paying me for the photograph.
Right.
And the same thing when you do photographs of people, they pay you for the photograph, but the copyright of the photograph is yours, not theirs.
That's an interesting point to keep in mind. not just as a journalist, because what I'm hearing is that the journalist is going to have some issues in terms of copyright. So you have to figure out whether you're going to be the owner, retain your own work by staying the owner of your own work, or whether you're going to perhaps freelance and therefore retain your own intellectual property license, and therefore the work remains yours. Is that what it is? Yes,
that's it. That's why most photographers in the outside world are freelancers. They make more money as a freelancer than with working for a company. Because as a freelancer, and they call you to do a job, you are paid from the time you leave your home to the time you return to your home, and they send the last photograph.
Right.
While working for a media house, you go take the photograph, bring it back, drop it, and somebody else does the editing and everything, and you go on your way. You're not staying around.
So how does that work as an author? Because hear what I'm thinking. So you write your own book, right? You have your manuscript and you go and you publish with a publisher. So the person publishes your work, gives you an advance, kind of like a J.K. Rowling. You know, you have a bestseller, you're feeling really good, they give you this big advance, you buy a nice car. What do you retain intellectual property rights when the publisher does something like that? Is it that money they advance you, is they buying your intellectual property, or is it just that they're purchasing the rights to print and to publish?
They're taking the rights to print and publish without you knowing.
So they are retaining, when they give you that advance, they pay for everything. They are retaining your intellectual property rights. So yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question. So that is, for example, if a publishing house or big company has paid you in advance, but the other end is you normally would have to pay to have your book published, wasn't it? It's an expensive process at the outset, isn't it?
It's expensive according to how expensive you want it to be. Because I believe that as a young author coming up, the aim is that to get it self-publish a book and get editors to go through a book and give them the ideas. Because most editors hardly charge anybody, they just go through and do it for you. But when you put a publisher house to run it and they pay you that money, if they publish and they pay you $100,000 and they print 1 million books and it's a bestseller for 1 million books, you get 100,000 already. You know, they have no time with you again.
Right.
They give you when they see the work that you are doing, and they see it's a bestseller, they pay you some money and say, listen, this will be a bestseller. Look at $100,000, and they go on with your book.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because I'm just reflecting on, because I've had a journey with my current publisher who is excellent, and she specializes in mentoring women through to the whole publication process as a book journey mentor. I had posted something on one of the other platforms, and a children's book company from the States, I won't name them here, I'll give them free publicity, but they contacted me and said that they were interested to actually publish my book. They're based somewhere in California. Now, they asked for me to send them, a copy of the manuscript, etc. But I had already committed, in many ways with this current publisher with whom we co-presented a book review radio show for almost 6 to 8 months. She specially mentors women publishers. So I had a loyalty, but also a mentoring journey with her. But this company in California, they saw that my book is a series, because this first book is for 3 to 9 year olds. And this is my main character, Chrissy, at the age of 6. But I've got her coming at the age of 10, at the age of 8, and at the age of 10. So they saw it was a series. So they contacted me and registered an interest to follow the series, depending on what I decide. And it looks like they would have made an offer and probably just hive off the book itself. in terms of the outcome.
That is the problem in publishing houses. They give you a lump sum up in front, right? And that's your lump sum for your book. And they control the publication and the sales.
Right.
If you
I didn't
self-publish,
want that though.
you controls every single thing with it, and you control your sales.
Right. So self-publishing. Let's just quickly take a tiki time out, right?
Mm.
Authors, writers out there. This is what we're hearing. We're hearing you get a big advance like a J.K. Rowling. They have this nice sweet book. They give you a bunch of money, a barrel full of money, and you go about your business. You buy something nice. You're rich, but you do not the rights to in that book that you put up. You do not own the rights to it, right? Let us say you go the route of self-publishing. You now retain the rights. Now it's a little more of a headache. Right? And when we say self-publishing, you can get a publisher, and you can correct me because this is what I'm getting from what y'all are saying. You can get a publisher to do your book, but you will still retain the rights. But from the minute they pay for everything, instead of you paying them to do it, from the minute they pay you, they have
everything.
Yeah.
Whoever pays is what is he saying? You see. What is the proverb? Who pays?
Piper calls the tune.
Piper calls the tune.
So this is what we're saying, authors and writers out there. If you pay the publisher, you own your book. If they pay you, the writer, they own your book. So simple maths, always if you want to retain your rights, you have to pay. Yeah?
Plus, you will to say that for me, because I actually know the publisher, as I say, we had a professional relationship on the radio show. I know her integrity. I know the caliber of her work after she set up a publishing company. A big company in California, for example, they just saw the title of the book and the series and mangoes, and they know mangoes are eaten all over the world, and they just saw, oh, this looks like something mega. So I didn't even follow mangoes everywhere. I didn't even follow up to ask what would they pay, because they were chasing me. So I just said the book is a series, and later on we'll see what happens. At the moment, I've got a publisher, and I'm going to be sticking with the current publisher. I didn't give any commitment, and they kept writing. And when I ignore them, they've gone quiet a bit. And occasionally I would get something saying, are you interested in, have you written the second book yet, etc. So they're still on my case. With the mangoes, they realize mangoes is a global thing, and this is a multi-million pound thing coming. So
see, mangoes is something that is found throughout the world all year round.
Yes.
And they realize that putting the word mango in any country in a book, somebody will buy the book with mango.
Yes.
So they see the millions, so they will give you 100, 200,000. You buy a fancy car, get a house, and they will see the millions coming down the road as the year go by, and your grandchildren can benefit from it. You can benefit from it.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you publish for yourself, you could benefit from it, and your grandchildren down the line could benefit from it because you retain all the rights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really written for my grandson, and I want him to benefit from the legacy of it. But I want a publisher whose integrity would preserve that, and the current one I have is absolutely on point.
Mm-hmm. Well,
is she paying you? Is she paying you for publication?
I'm not talking anything yet about our relationship. I'll let you know about that. But yeah, initially,
so she can't let out some contractual stuff until
I know. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nyam, as they say in Jamaica. Right? Mango sweet, and we got a nyam.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes, Joel.
But this is an important point, and not to stick here too long, but this is something musicians found out first, right? They found, and a lot of them found out the hard way, because they were always given an advance to produce their music, to do everything, because it's expensive. To live the life and to look the part, and they would be given money to do all these things, not knowing that they did not own their masters, as they are called in the music
I'll give a perfect example. I'll
In
give,
the music
I'll give a perfect example with in Barbados with Eddie Grant.
We're gonna go to Shaun because he has some information for us.
No, not so much information, just to amplify the point that you made.
Okay, well, we'll still come to you, Shaun.
Yeah, you made a comparison between the music industry, and just to say in the publishing industry, there's maybe 5 major publishing houses in the world, and they control the market completely. It's very similar to the music industry. There's maybe 5 or 6 record labels. They're conglomerates. They control the market entirely. Every imprint, publishing-wise, every imprint, most publishing houses that you see, apart from those who are independent and do it via the World Wide Web, are owned by, they're subsidiaries of one of the big 5 or 6 publishing houses. This is what writers are up against. I mean, I think the important thing is, as writers, journalists, authors, we're interested in writing. We're interested in sharing our stories. We want our stories to be read by as many people as possible, for posterity, for our children and our grandchildren. And we require like a framework that allows us to disseminate our work. And I think that framework is set up in a way, in some ways, to deter writers and authors. We want a framework which encourages writers and authors, gets their work out, disseminates their work, and publishes them far and wide with as little headache as possible for the writer or the author. Whereas at the moment, there's plenty of headaches.
That makes a lot of sense. And I would, God help me, if I ever get to that point where I'm finished with this manuscript and I'm getting ready to print, those are some of the considerations that we have to think about before we jump into it. Whether we want to retain ownership of our intellectual property, whether we want to retain that license, and therefore, who is going to pay? Are we going to be calling the tune, right, as the payer, right? Or are we going to be the payee? And on that note, I want us to look at the topic of royalties, right? It's a question I've had as somebody who is in the accounting field. Royalties came into came to my desk doing accounts for a large company, right? We were doing accounts for a company called Ripley's, believe it or not, and they get royalties from some of their work. And when we talk about royalties, it's really royalties, residuals, they kind of fall into the same category, right? So let me pull out this story and you can tell me if this is the same thing. So when you sell your book, and this is jumping ahead, we're gonna get to it, authors. When you sell your book on Amazon or a platform like Amazon, right? And they give you part of the sales. Is that what you all call royalties? Is that royalties, or is that something else? Is that profit sharing, or is that your portion of the sale money? What is that?
Well, I can't answer that because I never went into Amazon to deal with it. But what I do believe is that when you sign a contract with a publisher, that in royalties should come in as the years go down the line, as the interest, right? As the interest, you should sign part of it, because 20, 30 years down the road and the book is still being sold, then you ought to get royalties. Because even in music, a guy make a song, he gets another thing, but as the records are being sold over the years, right, with the Copyright Act, the royalties come from the Copyright Act, because every year, the Copyright Association draws money from each broadcasting house, each PEP, and that money comes in as royalty for all the persons who because they actually do a record a count of how many times a song will play per day on the radio station.
Yes.
To calculate the royalties.
Yes. So you're saying, Mr. Clement, from your experience, it's not the same, or is it?
I don't know about Amazon.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put that down under the topic of for our second session, because there are so many questions didn't get a chance to ask. We're now at 17 past 6, and we want to wrap up in a timely manner, right? We don't want people to get too tired of us, but we want to cover some important points. And I think that royalty question, we need to address it, because that's something I want us authors and writers to understand. How we're going to be making money from our book, how we're going to be making money from our intellectual property, right? So just to recap, we've looked at the process of how to go about getting your ideas out of your head onto some kind of medium, how to go about formatting, editing, getting it to the printer. So basically we're looking at self-publishing, but we also looked at where you go to a publisher and let them do the work for you. No headache, no stress, and they do all of the bits and pieces for you, right? So let me just ask this really foolish question. If I have a manuscript and I don't produce a published hard copy book, I don't get one of this, right? And I'm showing off a little bit Tobago in print, right? So you don't get one of these. Tell me, am I a published author if I got an ebook, if I got an audio book? Am I a published author?
As long as it's published as an ebook or is published.
Yeah, I think so.
You're getting a number. You're getting a copyright number in it.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I think
published.
even an audiobook and an ebook gets
Yes.
an ISBN number. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I suppose that's a distinction, because I recently had an excellent editorial experience for another publication, but it's more like a brochure. So it doesn't have any ISBN number. So of course, even though that is going to be widely circulated, probably worldwide, but it's not a publication. It's a, what do you call that? It's like it's a brochure. It's a journalistic publicated like it's a journal.
Okay.
But it's not a published book.
Right.
Yes, you get because if you can register the journal, you'll be registered, because if you're studying at university and you do a citation, they have a website, book, newspaper, journal, and these things along the line. So the thing is that as long as it is part of the citation site on table, that means it's registered.
Oh, so to whom? Well, where would I register? To whom would I register that with?
I think with Amazon, everything is registered online. I do believe so.
Okay.
But one thing I must inform persons who want to register with Amazon. When you register with Amazon to print your book and sell it, you have to apply for American tax code. Because every cent out of America, US dollar you're making, you have to pay tax. So you have to register in the American tax system, federal tax.
As they say in the music industry, wheel, Mr. Clement, wheel. What
Will I come again?
Will you come again? Yes. In printing, if you're doing an ebook, right? And Amazon is selling the book for you, the money you're getting, taxes ought to be taken out by the American tax, federal taxes must be paid. So you have to get a federal tax number.
How do you get, just to jump ahead?
You go online and apply for it.
By yourself?
Online, by yourself, yeah.
So you could get a tax number if you are an author having a book product on a platform such as Amazon, which is a US company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know, that's so interesting, because I did mention I do write book reviews. I'm also looking for an outlet to have that as an income stream. But I did a book review for my publisher who has written a number of books, but her most recent book on lockdown life. And I posted the review on Goodreads and also on Amazon UK. When I tried to post it on Amazon US, they said I had to have spent so much money within the last 12 months or the last couple of months before even allowing me to be able to post a review on the US website. I mean, my publisher was like, she was taken back, because the UK one and the Goodreads accepted it as a brilliant review, but I had committed financially. America is the most vulgar capitalist country on the planet.
They rob the dead.
And that was a plug for anti-capitalists.
I hope they will.
We're looking at different territories. We're looking at US and UK. We have Yishibah, who is there currently, and we have Shaun, who was there for quite a while.
Yes.
Could you bring to bear some of the similarities with what we're looking at, or are there any similarities? If I was to put my book on perhaps a UK platform to sell my book, would I have tax issues? Would I have to go through jump through hoops? What would I have to do?
Well, I published, as you all know, through a US publisher.
Okay.
It sounds vaguely familiar what Clement said about the tax code. I don't know that what I get, anything comes out of that, but it may be possible. I think I remember it's been over 10 years.
I think your publisher paid the taxes, not you.
Yeah, I think it's taken out so early and the rest is sent to me. So while I don't want to be 100% sure, I think there's some element of that goes to tax. You may be right.
So they say the publisher did your book for you, right? The publisher did everything for you. So the publisher will pay the taxes because they have the tax number. But if you're doing it for yourself, you will have to dance to the music.
What could you tell us, Shaun? Yishibah stepped away for a moment, but could you tell us, Shaun, what that looks like and what's that about from the UK perspective?
Yes. Well, I haven't got much direct experience in publishing in the UK, but I think that as I was saying, the major publishing houses control that market. So the practices that they use, the protocols that they use to assist writers with their manuscripts, it's probably going to be quite similar. I believe that there are taxable income, or that there is taxable income in the UK publishing industry, but it's a minefield to navigate. It's difficult terrain for the author. It's something that the author needs to know. Getting a lawyer is important. I think it's one of the important, or they are one of the important support mechanisms for new authors, especially dealing with copyright and income, royalties and advances. So I think that's one of the areas that our new authors need to think about, especially if their books start to or are picked up by major publishers, or if they begin to see, or if they see expecting or anticipating financial support or advance from their publishing house.
This is...
Excuse me, moderator, for stepping away. I didn't have time to cue you first.
That's okay. We covered for you.
Okay, thank you.
So, you see, this is where it gets a little tricky and sticky. So far, we've had, in my mind, a really smooth process laid out for us. We had the idea, we wrote the book, we got it formatted, we either self-published, where we retained our license as intellectual property license, or we got the publisher to pay us. You know, J.K. Rowling style, Stephen style, they gave you the advance, you don't retain intellectual property, they are the owners of your work. We got to that point. Smooth sailing, we understand what's happening. You can now choose. But now we're heading into a little murky waters where we're talking about taxes, where we're talking about contract law, when we're talking about what to look for in a contract. What should your contract have and what your contract shouldn't have? And do you need to personally retain the services of somebody who is versed perhaps in contract law for writers, for authors, to protect yourself. Ms. Miggins, you are an attorney at law in Tobago, in the jurisdiction of Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean. And while you may not be doing contract law, could you give us some insight into how sensible it would be, or if would be in our interest to retain a lawyer as a writer, or is there another way for us to protect ourselves?
I don't think that there's any other way to protect yourself. However, retaining a lawyer is more an idea than something you do in reality. Reason is, there are few lawyers who are really publishing lawyers, or whatever word you want to give them. And there are terms. You know, it's like when you go on Google and you go on all these big tech companies, they give you a list of privacy rules or different things, and at the bottom of it, I accept. How many of us really sit down and read through that? Few. And to tell you the truth, it's the same in the publishing contract. It is long, it is technical, nobody understands it, frankly. So you could go to your lawyer, they might just charge you some monies, but in the end of the day, you just have to take it on the reputation of the publisher. That's my view. You could fight going to lawyer and paying lawyer, but my dear lady, not this wrongs. This wrongs, you just have to go and faith and trust as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if anybody has a different.
May I say something, Joel? Joel, my second book, the one that I did with the guy from Trinidad, with Disney Film Heritage of Tobago, we're doing a second edition, and he want to have it on Kindle. And when he contacted the company, they talk about paying. We have to get a tax number and these things. And he spoke to a lawyer, and the lawyer said, well, he's in the stock market. The lawyer said, instead of going to get a new number, use a stock market number and pay, and as part of the paying for the books. So you have one taxes paying one. You have a number ready. So no use to go and re-register to get a new number. That is why I say that that the taxes have to be paid on the books, because we planning to go on Kindle and ebooks, right? And that is what I'm part of it.
So what about the point as to the contract, whether you ought to get a lawyer?
No, well, the thing is that you as the person who dealing with it, I think with the ebook, we have everything online for you to read and to agree. And then you put I agree, and when you agree to everything that but you have to take time and read the contract. But some people just like to they scroll it and put agree and then read it, then read nothing yet. As I told somebody, when I go to sign a contract, I read in all the fine prints, not the big prints. The big prints is just a waste of time. Fine prints is the one that I read.
If you were to buy a property in the US and they give you that mortgage agreement, I could promise you you're not reading it. I could promise you it's about 4 to 6 pages long, and nobody reads it, frankly. Anyhow, go ahead. Go ahead, madam.
I read my fine print.
I get what you're saying, Ms. Miggins. I really, really do, because let us just, as you did, draw the parallel between those contracts that we get, right? Those agreements that we get, just to have an email address, and we rarely read those. Well, I don't read them. And
sorry for you.
Nobody does except Clement.
Except
I like to read by accepting, you know.
You're putting it out there. Everybody, you need somebody to read your contract. Mr. Williams is
I'm charging to pay. I'm charging to read. There's a joke, you know.
Yeah.
A guy got a contract from a bank, and they sent it to him an email. He downloaded and changed the contract at the bottom and signed it and sent it back, and they agree with it. So when they ask,
they too not read it.
You know what he said? Read the contract. He changed from I have to pay to have to pay nothing. And they take it back. And so when they read the contract, I realize, listen, he changed the contract but because he want to see if they read in the contract too.
Yes, I like
So
that.
when it sent him like, you're not paying your installments, he said, read the contract again.
But that is a story also with in Parliament, the draftsman put in them big telecommunications law and all that. He just put in any marriage of Ralph Henry is hereby dissolved in all the fine print inside. And nobody reading it, and it was passed. So he had his divorce there easy waiting for the poor wife.
We are laughing here because none of us have had the unfortunate experience having to deal with the consequences of not reading a contract. Not good. We have never had that experience, and hopefully we never will. As the old people say, cross yourself. But it is something to note. You're taking a chance if you get a contract and you don't read it. And that being said, it is long and laborious because it wants to cover everything. Almost all eventualities this contract wants to cover. And you are taking a chance if you don't read your contract, and whatever you get, as my mom used to say, when you take shortcuts, when whatever you get, then you'll have to say thanks because you had the opportunity. But I would say, and this was brought up by Ms. Miggins at another time, do your due diligence. Perhaps you may not want to go through the entire contract, but do your due diligence to see how reputable the organization that you're dealing with is. Look at the reviews, Google them and see what people are saying about them, because people who have bad experiences love to go on the internet now and tell everybody about it. They very rarely go back and give good reviews, But if they had a poor experience, and we know that in Tobago tourism industry, give them a poor experience and they will tell everybody. You understand? They come by, they had the time of their life and they will tell not a soul. So go on Google, do your due diligence, ask questions, find out what is the reputation of the organization you're dealing with, as Ms. Miggins had brought up a time before. And I thought that was a really important point. And based on your information, you have less of a chance of finding a scammer. They're out there, but they're really good, reputable companies because they want to continue working with authors like ourselves. They want to continue doing work, so they have to keep their reputation whole. We're at the 6:30 point, and I think we have a few more questions we could answer that our authors would really want to hear from us. And what I want to find out from you all, one, we're gonna have probably about 2 or 3 more questions. One, what opportunities exist for first-time authors in terms of marketing their book, getting their book out there? What would you advise a first-time author about how they can go about getting their book into the hands of the public, getting sales, etc.? And the floor is open.
Okay, can I start off the ball of what I did?
Of course, Mr. Williams.
I looked for a sponsor to pay for printing the book.
Okay.
According to your material, you will get a sponsor. Because I spoke to a CEO of a bank, 5 minutes with him, and he told me, submit a letter to this office. And in 2 weeks' time, the legal contract was signed for the sponsorship. Because there's something about Tobago, and they were looking for the things of Tobago because nothing was done like that in Tobago before.
Right.
Right. So he jumped on it because his bank liked Tobago and they want to sponsor Tobago. So the thing is that everything you're doing, there must be something you're doing that will the country must benefit from it, or the population or general. Right. You get a sponsor. And the thing is that you look for reputable bookstores. right? One of my bookstores that was doing my sales to me was a bookstore that have an online bookstore in Trinidad that will sell books overseas. People will go on the website and buy it and they will post it. And I don't care what they charge. I tell them, listen, the book costs so much. I do it on consignment. I need so much for a book. You do how much you want to sell it for, you can sell it after. That's what I need for the book. And
Right.
I got my books sold. And next thing too, you write a book, try to see or get on a TV station and try to have a 5-minute, 10-minute interview about your book and relay a book to people so that people will see it and people will look for it. But you have to market. Your marketing is one of the main things.
Excellent.
Market it online and market it. Get the television. Channel 5 will like to do it, and they have a new channel now. They will like to do it because it's something about Tobago, right? And if we're dealing with gender affairs and these are things, that topics that are regular in the news this time. So doing books with these things with children and these things, it will sell on the media, and long when people see it on the television, they will grasp towards it. And that's the best way of advertising. And with Instagram is the master of all.
Yes.
Right. So, anybody else?
Nothing beats. Go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in because you, Julie, mentioned first-time authors. I'd just like to let the listeners know that in the course of the process of the writing my book, as well as researching other children's authors, I spent quite a lot of time in our local library, especially the children's department. I spoke to the children's library staff and head of department, let them know the book was coming out, and in fact, they are currently on standby to see the book, and they want to release it to all the under 5s and nurseries in the borough. Also, I was also looking for other people of interest. I've contacted here in London.
Yeah, your mic went out.
Technical.
Yes.
Technical problems.
Technical issues here. But let me just recap quickly before Yishibah comes back. I think she's back. Yishibah, you're back?
Yeah, I was on the phone and my daughter called came through, yes.
Oh, okay.
In addition to the library, I also went to Waterstones here.
The volume is very low. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me now?
Not really, not
It
well
was
at
low.
all. Okay, Yishibah's going to take care of her technical issues. Hopefully we'll have her back soon because she has vital information for us about that library.
What I was about to say is that there's nothing beats a good old book launch where you get all your friends and a book launch.
A book launch.
A book launch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where you get your friends and families and everybody and invite as many people as you can and pre-sell the book among them. You're supposed to get at least 50 hard sales immediately, at least.
At the launch.
Then you pick up from where Clement left off.
I launched my book, so I got people buying the book at the same evening they launched. I think Julia was there, right?
Yes, when you launched the library, this is pre-COVID, of course. I went to the library with my then boyfriend, now husband, and when we were coming down the stairs, we met Mr. Clement at the bottom of the second floor steps, and he said, "Oh, you're coming to the launch, right?" And we were like, "Oh, yes."
You didn't invite nobody.
Didn't know anything about it. We were just happened to be in the library, and we got into that launch because I know Mr. Clement because I took a class with him. He teaches a photography class with the community development, and I took that class with him. That's how I initially met Mr. Williams. And then I met him in the library again, and I said, well, we ended up in lunch because we love those kind of things. So he was like, this has to be kismet. So we jumped in the launch, and we ended up buying one of Mr. Williams's book right there that day. Yeah, so book launches do work. And not only do they work, but putting yourself out there. You know, Mr. Williams wasn't inside quivering. I hope people come to my launch. He was outside by the front door welcoming people. And as people were coming down the stairs in the library, he was like, come. We having a book launch going on. Come in. You know, that kind of way. And I think marketing, you have to at some point put yourself out there a little bit. You know, you need not be an extrovert, but you may need to finesse, you know, that look at me, I have a book and I would like to share it with you, you know, and that's a good part. That's a good thing for us to discuss as well. And I think I'm gonna put that down on the program for the next one, because we didn't touch a lot of marketing today. What we did touch on was a lot of publication information. And now that we've discussed the publication, I'm sure the writers and authors want to know all the tips and tricks about marketing your book and getting that money in your pocket, the book into the public hands, and moving your book forward, right? So not to cut anybody, but Mr. Clement's point was sponsorship. He was find a niche to get your book into. Talk to somebody who finds your book unique to their situation. And Yishibah, we let you finish because you had started to tell us about the opportunity with the library in your area. So please go ahead. We're not hearing you at all. Your mic is on, but
you're covering the microphone.
Is that good now? Let me hear.
Can you hear me now?
Very, very low volume. Is your mic turned up to all?
Yes, I'm not sure since my daughter called, this happened.
If you have a Bluetooth on, take off the Bluetooth.
If perhaps you have a Bluetooth that the phone has connected to, that may be the issue. Well, let's head over to Miss Miggins, and we'll wait Yishibah, because that information is vital. Miss Miggins, tell us about your experience about getting your book out. You started by saying a book launch.
Yeah, well, that was quite a lot what propelled me. And then would you believe it's just normal, what they call it, niggergram. Just people.
Same thing.
That was back in 2007 when I wasn't so aware.
Yes.
Tech savvy as I am, as a little better as I am now. But people were just passing around, and all now people meet me and want a book, and it's because somebody else told them. Simple as that, because I don't really have the time to push my book as I should be doing. So when I sell it, really just people circulating the news about the proverbs that I have, and people who go to UE, a lot of people at school, at university, who are doing work on that area would come and ask for a copy. People in the diaspora, they are the ones who really also are very excited about it, and they can buy it from Amazon. So I just refer them there, and that's it. So basically, that's my experience.
Let's switch to Yishibah. You back with us? Audio? No audio. Do you want to come out the meeting and see if we could re-enter, and if that would help? We're here. Okay. Shaun, we want to switch to you quickly, and
yes,
I know you do periodicals, journals, papers, etc. But could you give us some tips, because there are some young journalists coming up, and they want to know, if I were writing freelance here, how do I go about selling my work and making some money?
Well, I think the freelance route is an important one to develop contacts as well as to develop skills. But my experience is that most young journalists enter the profession through a traditional route, and that's by joining a media house, a newspaper or a magazine or a periodical, and they develop their skills and capabilities as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Develop those skills, then a route that can be taken and is taken by many journalists is the freelance route. And the freelance route, as Clement was talking about earlier, gives one much more autonomy and independence, and also ownership of one's work. So I think the freelance route is a good one to follow. I think one of the ways to get into freelance work is to contact as many news media houses and their editors, their commissioning editors, if they have one, as you can, or to find out who are the editors or the senior journalists on particular sections. If you're interested in sport, if you're interested in culture, in book reviews or music reviews or arts and entertainment, then identify the journalists in those media houses or the editors of those particular departments. Contact them, tell them, pitch a story, as they say, share examples of your work, try and get your foot in the door in that way. Another way, obviously, a non-traditional route, many people following now is to establish their blog or publish their work on Facebook or Instagram. These are maybe for traditional journalists seen as unorthodox methods, but they definitely hone the skills. They provide an outlet for writers and journalists, and they also allow the writers and journalists and authors to develop their skills, especially in terms of writing skills, writing to deadline, writing to topic, and it provides an important outlet. A blog is an important way to develop writing as well, because you can identify your own specialism, whether you are into, I don't know, a particular sport or a particular area of music or particular cultural expression. That's something that you can focus on. You can develop that area of expertise. And that's one way that also that your name and your skill and your reputation gets identified. So freelance route, I think, is a good route to follow, and there's many avenues through which to get into the freelance profession as a journalist.
Right. Well, what I'm hearing from you, Shaun, is that networking is very important to a journalist and a freelancer.
Definitely.
Get Rolodex filled up, as they used to say, right?
Yes.
Getting those contacts who would be interested in your work, who would be opportunities to distribute your work,
Yes.
who would probably buy your work, and not only buy it because you may be doing a blog, but who may also be consumers of your work if you're just doing a blog for people it hasn't been monetized then, right?
Yes, that's right.
I think we've heard a good chunk for us to, cut our teeth on in terms of get the work out there. So we've heard a sponsor, we've heard do a book launch, so marketing. We've heard from you, get your Rolodex sorted out, get your network and your contacts, right? And for those of us who are age challenged, I call it, you all may not know what a Rolodex is. It used to be this round thing with cards stuck on it, and you would take out one and write somebody's name and their number and contact information. And people would have Rolodexes that would be the envy of every single person, because they would know everybody who would be somebody, so to speak, right? So get your Rolodex sorted out, get your contact list. In this day and age, it is usually get your Google and your email contact list. So you might have to engage in perhaps some email marketing to collect those email addresses and contacts, right? And one of the things that I have noticed as well, utilize notice boards, right? And I went into a bank. I don't want to call the bank's name for you all to go and interfere with them. I could put my thing on your notice board, but check a bank. They have a notice board, and sometimes they allow you, especially people who have accounts with them, to put up your stuff there. So you might want to do a flyer. It doesn't have to be a large one, and you could put it up at a notice board. You could leave a brochure at a library, right? You can start a book review group where you all do books for local authors. You could be one of those authors that you all review. There are a good few ways to get them out. And we're just throwing out ideas today in terms of how you can get your book and your material out there, because it's not only people who write novels, biographies, but we're looking at musicians, we're looking at writers, poets, poetresses, We're looking at people who do spoken word. How do you get your work out there? You could also attend events like the open mic. The Writers Guild has open mic for children under 7 to 14 years. It's called First Mic. We also have another open mic for the adults. That's called The Next Chapter. And attending these events and letting yourself be heard as a poet, as a storyteller, is a good way to get yourself out there in the public eye, to let people hear what's happening with you. You may even go there and read from your book, right? We have one of our founders, Miss Lauren Boris Phillip. She reads dramatically, right? So she had participated in the Reading Fest and she read out in different voices part of a book that she liked. And that's something you could do. If you have a book, you could go and do a dramatic reading. You know, you could become a Paul Keene Douglas with your work. So I think there's so many versatile ways for us to market our books, but we haven't touched the iceberg. And we are going to have a session about that. And we're going to be wrapping up in the next 2 minutes. And I just want to give Shaun, I want to finish off with what Yishibah had started before I move to Shaun, because I think I know what she was going to be talking about briefly. The Nallis Library has a first-time author program, and Mr. Clement was telling us more about that, and we also had somebody in our chat talking about that. And if you apply to that first author program, in the year that your book is published, they will promote you, give you an award, put you up, so to speak, in the public eye and all of that, and make sure that you are seen. We have a document here. Shaun, just 1 minute pause, but what you have to offer is very important. So we're gonna come back to that. We had some tips and tricks to note for THA grant submission. And this was supplied to us by a member who had some inside track information for us, right? And we're not putting anybody up. She was very generous to give us this information, but she said a lot of what Mr. Williams was saying. And we're gonna provide this document perhaps as an attachment, if we can, in the YouTube video. So you could always go back to it, right? So it was to seek the application process of these divisions. And this is specifically for Tobago, but it might apply to Trinidad as a ministry. So whatever application process they have for grants and for helping authors and writers get from point A to point B, avail yourself of those. So contact the ministry, contact the division and find out what they have available and go through the process, whether it's an application form or whether you're going to be sending in a letter. Find out what the process is and start it, right? Structure the letter to make yourself unique, to stand out. Get your estimates in all lined up in a row for your venture, right? Whether it's the estimate for the makeup artist, your videographer, your publisher, your editor, your formatter, whoever it might be, get those things together and make sure you have a list of your top invoices that you need filled for your project, right? Some invoices may be low priority, some are high priority. Make sure you understand which are high priority and put those first, and be reasonable with your requests. Don't ask for things that perhaps are luxury items. So she said, don't ask for a BMW for your photo shoot. They're not gonna fund things like that, right? And she also talked about sending in pictures, giving them updates as to what's happening, you know, where you started from, where you are at now and where you'd like to go. And people like to see that you're doing something for yourself. So we're gonna post some of the other points, but for now, we just want Shaun to close us off. He is one of the directors of the publishing house, the Tobago Writers Guild Publishing House. And I just want Shaun to go over briefly some of the things that will the publishing house is providing, some of the ways that they are providing for authors in the local market to help us navigate all the things we've talked about. Shaun?
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Thanks also in advance to Deborah, to Clement and Yishibah for the insight that they've given tonight. They've all shared, I think we've all shared, and you, Joel, have shared invaluable knowledge, guidance, tips, and experience to help first-time and experienced authors to continue to publish their work. I just want to summarize very briefly some of the things that we've talked about tonight, because they are all of those areas are aspects of the publishing process that we in the Publishing House of the Tobago Writers Guild want to be able to help our authors with, in order that they can navigate the sometimes difficult terrain of publishing their work. So we looked at, tonight we looked at how to get the ideas from the writer's head to the manuscript stage. We looked at hints and tips that our panelists, our contributors have used to inspire themselves with their writing. We looked at some of the technical details, which in many ways could be daunting, some of the technical details related to publishing, in terms of copyright, ISBN issues, as well as some of the aspects related to editing, copy editing, printing, and we looked at the different routes, self-publishing or via an established publishing house. And we also, I think, we looked at the importance of marketing and promotion once all those hurdles, you might say, have been overcome and you're ready to sell your book. So I think that these are areas in the publishing house that we are developing skills in, we are developing knowledge in, we have good contacts to be able to help our authors in Tobago and further afield to publish their work. And very soon we'll be able to offer that service to writers who have their books ready to publish. So those are some of the things I think were highlights tonight. I think that this is not the beginning, this is not the end of the discussion or the guidance. It's the start of the process of supporting our writers here via the Tobago Writers Guild, supporting our writers on this Authors' Day to enable them and us to get our work from pen to publication.
Thank you so much, Shaun. And I want to thank each and every person who contributed to this free webinar, gave up their time, their talent, their knowledge, their intellectual property by sharing what they have gained through the process of going from pen to publication. And we want to close off this evening. We want to make sure that our listening public, our authors of the Guild understand, listen, don't stop writing. Never stop writing. It's never too early to start, and you should never stop. Writing is important. It's a component of our lives. It brings color and texture to our everyday life. It is history. Without any more ado and any more talking, we want to close off for the night. We want to be reminded to keep it local with a regional and international focus. Mr. Clement, Mr. Yishibah Hutchinson, Mrs. Moore-Miggins, toast to you, toast to your writing, toast to your books. Keep it coming, keep the good work up, and good night, people.
Good night, good night, good night.
Good night, Clement.
Okay, good night, Mr. Shaun. Good night, Deborah. Good night, Joel.